Hello, everybody. Welcome to another DMV Comic Book Nerds podcast. I'm your host, Freddie, and I'm so glad that you're here with us today. Uh, Regular listeners will know that it's been a few months since we've had a new podcast, but today is March 21st, 2024. It's been a big week for comic book fans and nerds, and particularly fans of the X-Men. As you can see, I've got my X-Men shirts from the 90s, got some Jim Lee art on there. And actually, maybe you can't see it if you're listening on Spotify or Apple, but big news with this podcast today, we are hopefully venturing onto YouTube so you can see our lovely faces. And yeah, I've got a special guest for you guys today. I'd like to introduce you all to my guest, Damon.
Hello, hello. Thanks for having me on, Freddie.
Thanks for joining us. Podcast friends, listeners, listen up. If you've listened to DMV Comic Book Nerds before, you might know that we reviewed season 7 of Riverdale last year. And not too long ago, Damon had me as a guest on his podcast, Super Saturdays Podcast. You can find that on various platforms. We'll share everything at the end. But yeah, we talked about Riverdale pilot episode number 1. So you might want to go check that out if you're fans of that. But today, like I said, we are here to discuss X-Men. This is such big news. Like, it's been 30 years since the original animated series, and now we have finally been able to watch the first episode of the reboot. And just so you know, listeners, this will be a special 2-part podcast. Damon and I are going to discuss episode 1 right here, right now. And if you want to catch our thoughts on episode 2, hop on over to Damon's podcast, Super Saturdays Podcast, and you'll be able to hear the rest of our thoughts.
And yeah, like I said earlier, thanks for having me on, Freddie. And over on Super Saturdays, the whole month of March, it has been Mutant March. So if you like other X-Men stuff and want to check out some other things, then yeah. But I'm here. I'm really excited to talk about that first episode with you, Freddie.
Likewise, yeah, check out Damon's podcast, everybody, because lots of great stuff on there, lots of great interviews with comic creators, lots of discussion and reviews of cool comic related stuff. So um, if you haven't already, go check it out. But yeah, if you are a new listener, or maybe you haven't listened to very many of our podcasts, you might be wondering, who are we? So I want to give you guys a little bit of background information about who we are and how we came to know the X-Men. Damon, would you
Uh,
like to go first?
my love for the X-Men and just interest for the X-Men kind of stemmed from a couple of different ways. I would say my cousin, he gave me like a crap ton of like just VHS tapes. And there's a couple of different things that I liked watching in that box of VHS tapes. It was, and this is gonna be controversial. I, as a kid, enjoyed Batman and Robin. I loved that movie, and he gave
Me
me
too.
a couple of
I'm glad I'm not the only one.
literally. As a little kid, I liked it because it was corny, but like it was fun. I liked it. It was fun as a little
Yeah,
kid. As an adult, I can admit it's very campy, but like sometimes I like a little bit of camp. There's nothing wrong with that.
right. Me too.
hmm but like, so I got those VHS tapes where X-Men, the animated series, and it was like some random episodes on. I think it was two different VHS tapes. I had no idea what the hell was going on, and I remember, I didn't really care for it because I didn't know what was going on with it and everything. Now I loved the movies and I enjoyed whenever the X-Men showed up and stuff. And I'd say like I had like a passive knowledge and understanding of X-Men and like enjoyment and love for the X-Men. I liked Cyclops a lot. I liked Wolverine a lot. But the love and appreciation didn't really happen. And this is going to be something that's new that I did not talk about in Mutant March over on Super Saturdays. It kind of started over the pandemic when I sat down and listened to this one comic book series called Jay and Miles Explain the X-Men.
Yeah, great
And
podcast. Yeah,
yeah, so when I was listening to theirs, that's when I got like a deep dive. And then also just seeing just more X-Men pop up in different places. I got my partner into Jessica Jones and he was telling me how Jean Grey popped up in Alias, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. So Yeah, that's where my like start for enjoyment slash love for the X Men kind of grew. What about yours, Freddie? When did you first get into the X Men?
All right, so first I'll say that um, as we record, I am 35 years old, and I got into the X Men as a kid. I do think that the animated series was probably the first time I probably saw them. I wasn't really watching it live. I don't think I do recall having some VHS tapes with a few random episodes. I
Mhm.
believe it was like some season two episodes, maybe some season three episodes. And it took a long time before I could watch like the whole series, but I liked it. And I saw the movies um, as they were coming out, and but the things that really hooked me as an X-Men fan, like in the early 2000s, that was when I started reading comic books regularly, and that was when X-Men Evolution came out. So I'm actually a big X-Men Evolution fan. I mean,
Ooh, okay.
I love all the X-Men shows. I mean, love the 90s series. It's the OG. I got respect on its name. But Evolution was where it was at for me in the early 2000s. Also, the Ultimate X-Men comic books, it was like a whole
Yes.
moment for X-Men in that era. But you know, ever since then I've been reading all the comic books, watching all the shows that I can, and just keeping up with it. So I'm so excited to be here talking with you now about this show. Um I do want to say for people who might not be watching and just listening, we are both Black nerds. We are both, African Americans here. So our perspectives might, have a little bit to do with that. This is a show about minorities. So if you don't like that, if you think it's too woke, this might not be the podcast for you.
Woke. Mm, mm, mm.
But yeah, but I will also add that I identify as queer, sometimes gay or sometimes bi. I kind of use all those terms, but that also informs my perspective on what I'm about to say, not directly, but what I might talk about here on this podcast. All right, so today we are discussing X-Men 97, Season 1, Episode 1, To Me, My X-Men. Man. All right, so my thought was let's just kind of like talk about each character as they're introduced in the order they're introduced. And as we talk about them, we'll probably also talk about the plot and stuff. And before we start, I'll just say if you haven't watched it yet, go watch it. I don't know why you're listening to us if you haven't watched it yet, but
Yeah, go
we're
watch
about
it.
to have spoilers. Yeah.
Go watch it. Honestly, like first thoughts, uh uh all I gotta say is I was blown away. I was blown away by this first episode. Like, there's just so much shit. And on top of that, it was it was a treat seeing Black comic book Twitter like pop off about all the different things about it.
Yeah.
Like just I watched it last night and oh my god, there's just so much different stuff I'd say about that. And on top of that, Cyclops, come on now.
Oh, we will talk about Cyclops in a moment. But um, right at the top, though, I do have to say so this show has credits. And in the credits, it says created by, written by, executive producer, showrunner, Bo DeMeo. We found out last week that Bo DeMeo was fired from
Hmm.
Disney like the day before the premiere. So we got to talk about this real quick because Bo DeMeo is another black queer nerd. Like, I can only assume this was one of his dream jobs. Like, it would have been a dream job for me if I had
Hmm.
been able to do this reboot. Um, so I have a lot of questions about what happened. We all want to know what happened. It must have been something bad, we assume, but we don't want to speculate. But we haven't gotten a lot of details in the week since this happened. So
Listen, I just want to know what did that man do to upset everyone? And like I'm more in the camp of just being curious about what's going on. Now, if he were to have done what he allegedly has done, because there's a lot of different allegeds. We don't really have anything concrete. The only thing we had concrete, I think, was I think the people who worked on the show said that he was a joy to work with, and it was like just a parting of ways or something like that.
Yeah,
But it still was like pretty vague.
they used very vague, very a good PR language. So, let's hope it wasn't anything terrible. Let's just hope for that. We don't know. But we are seeing a lot of creatives and just celebrities, and I don't even know if we would call him a celebrity, but the point is just that you know we don't know what to think, because if this show is good, does he deserve credit? If this show is bad, does he deserve blame? Obviously, this show is a big deal, so like it's already, people are loving it, people are watching it, people are talking about it, reviewing it. So how can we talk about it without talking about him? I don't know, but we'll just have to wait and see if any more news comes out. But
Mhm.
I wish him the best. It could be anything. It could be maybe he's having some personal things that he's dealing with right now. I don't know. Um, I really don't want to speculate on it, but I do want to encourage listeners and the internet to be kind, because we never know what other people are going through. And, you know, we have seen some hatred for Bodemeo online before this show aired. Maybe people will be kinder now that the show has aired. I don't know.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's all I'll say about that. Let's be kind. Let's be patient. All right. So this episode opens up with Sunspot, a new character for the series. I think he might have had like a wordless cameo in the old show, maybe once or twice, but he was
Did he?
never. I think I do recall maybe seeing him like once in the background, but it wasn't enough for like this is considered his introduction right here, because they're doing something new with him. They've got a whole new character design for him. This is ostensibly our introduction to Roberto da Costa, Sunspot. So, uh here's where we got talk about Bodemeo, Sunspot, everything. Like, okay, so as Black nerds, I think a lot of us online have been saying, uh, what happened with the casting, because on this show, Roberto is played by Gui Agostini, who is a Brazilian or a Brazilian American actor. I'm not sure, but there's been a little controversy because he is not Afro Brazilian. He's not a darker skinned person. Um, and people could say, well, why does that matter? He's voice acting. It's a cartoon. But specifically with this character, Sunspot, if you look at his depictions through comics and media and movies, they fail to get it right a lot of the time. Like, he was introduced as a dark skinned Afro Latino character. And in the show here, he's kind of dark skinned, but um, the actor is noticeably fair skinned, whereas, you know, we have been we've seen that this show did take concern over the fact that Jubilee's actress was not Chinese American in the original series, but they recast her with the Chinese American. Like, they're trying to be more, they're trying to pay more attention to authentic representation, I think. But like, why is it you care about it in one case but not in the other case? I don't know. Do you have any thoughts about this?
Yeah, I have a couple of different thoughts on this. Number one, okay, I'm gonna play devil's advocate because some people were assuming that they weren't gonna show his origin story, which, to my knowledge, with his origin story within the New Mutants was that he was being picked on, and him being black was actually intrinsic to his character. His mutant powers manifested when the people were calling out the fact that he was black, that he was darker skinned, and and there was like a little bit of colorism at play with that. So him being black and Brazilian is very intrinsic and very important to his character. But a lot of different depictions, as you said, they just looked at the fact that he's Brazilian. And if I'm not mistaken, Boda de Mayo a little bit ago, prior to everything that happened, there was a little bit of controversy with him, kind of like saying, "Well, he can't be black and Brazilian," even though
Were those the words
he
he used?
was. I don't know the exact words, but I think it was something along those lines. It
Like
was like something on Twitter.
I do recall he had gotten into a bit of controversy on this particular issue. I don't know exactly what he said, but you know, this is one of several things that caused him to get into trouble online. So sometimes when
Hmm.
people are combative online, that can be an issue, but usually that doesn't get people fired, you know. Um, there was another allegation that Bodemeo has an OnlyFans, but apparently there's no nudity on the OnlyFans. It's just kind of like thirst trap pictures or something. I don't know, haven't
Hmm.
seen it, but I mean, I did notice that he has a few risque pictures on his Twitter. Um, I wouldn't have been posting that if I'm going to be working on the Disney show that's supposed to be kid friendly, but different strokes for different folks. I will say that
But
X
they knew
Men
about before
does
they
have.
hired him, though, too.
You're right. Like all the stuff was
Yeah.
known. So why would they fire him when they did? Um, but also X Men has a large adult queer audience. Like this show is basically nostalgia for 30-year-olds. Like I don't know if it's a kid show or not, but we'll see. Um, but anyway, so Sunspot is introduced, and immediately, like in the first 2-3 minutes, he's being kidnapped by the Friends of Humanity, the hate group that hates mutants, and immediately he says something that kind of triggers me. He's like, "I'm one of the good ones."
Woo!
I'm like,
Woo!
"Ooh,
Listen, I'm so glad that you know what I put that in my notes, which I think I left my note. Oh, no, my notes are right here. I put that in my notes because when I was watching that, I was like, I know they didn't just make that joke. And it made me think because I know that originally Sunspot's design, he did have lighter skin, but after the controversy, they then darkened his skin to kind of like appease the crowd and everything. Which, okay, I guess that's a little bit of a compromise, but adding that line, it was a little like, woo, one of the good
yeah,
ones.
yeah."
That's a
Like, and
little
that's the
something.
same thing. That's the same thing that Jonathan Major said when he was playing Kang in Loki season 1, when he was like, "Oh, don't come after me. I'm not like all those other Kangs. I'm one of the good ones." And like,
I don't
uh,
remember that. I do not
I
remember that.
this is one of my biggest problems with the Loki show and just with Marvel in general, Marvel Disney content. Like, there are a lot of things that I think we have let slide, and I guess we're going to continue to let slide. But let's move past the first couple minutes, okay? Because it gets better. It gets better. All right, so in a good way. So after that, um, then we are introduced to our first X-Man of the show. Storm announces herself full on dramatically as we expect her to do, and she bursts through a glass window from the ceiling. She's like, "Y'all, hold up! Y'all kidnapping mutants. Let me show you something." Storm
She
comes through
came
like
in
a
there
queen.
ready. She was
Yes,
ready. She was ready. And you know something? I'm going to say it right now. Out of all the voice actors, she is one of the best. Actually, I'd say she's
yes.
like number one for me. Like of
It's
all
Allison
of
Seeley
them.
Smith. We gotta put respect on her name because she is the OG. Like, um, also in props to Bodemeo and Kevin Feige and all of them, they brought back the original cast for this show. Like, that's so important. Like, the original cast, they laid the groundwork. They had these iconic voices. They deserve the respect and the employment. Frankly, like, we want them to have success because they put so much of themselves into this over the years, attending conventions and everything, and just like being, like being the voices for these characters. So like, yes, let's start with praising Alison Seeley Smith and all of her line deliveries. Um, the fact that she's back as Storm, and right away we get some good Storm content.
Mm-hmm.
So, any other thoughts about that?
Um, Honestly, just Storm was great. Storm was great, especially when she came in to save the day. I'd say that like at this point, I noticed that the animation was like kind of like anime-esque. Like I loved the
Yes.
animation on this. At first, when I saw the trailer, I was like, it looks a little choppy. And I'd say in this first episode, it was like a little choppy at some points, but like within this first scene, I was like, you know what? I'm all in, especially after Storm came in.
Yeah, like I was going to discuss the animation at the end, but let's just talk about it now. Um, so my worry going into this show, I was like, okay, is it going to be like uh computer generated, kind of like the What If series? Because if so, that wasn't something I was terribly interested in. Um, now that we've seen the show, they have said that it's mostly hand drawn animation, which is great if true. Although at the end of the show, they do show us these like turnaround 3D models that they have, like kind of giving away the game. Like they have models of each character, and it's not clear how much they're using them or not. If I had to guess, I think they're using them a lot. Like they're kind of, it looks kind of like they've got these 3D models, and maybe they're using them, maybe they're rotoscoping them, maybe they're tracing them, or maybe they have to technology to make it look hand drawn, maybe a bit of all of the above. But at the end of the day, I think the animation is good. Like in some places it's great, in some places it's not so great, but overall, I think it's pretty good, especially considering the original show. Like on the original show, the animation was not great all the time. Like it was,
You know,
you
you
know,
got to chill in the original show. You got to chill in that original show. Okay, you know what? You're not wrong. I was rewatching some of the original show, and I was like, I think this is the reason why I kind of like Evolution a little bit better. But I was presently surprised at that original show. I was.
yeah.
And yeah, back to
Don't
what
get
you
me
were
wrong, it's
saying
not
about
bad, but like there are animation errors. The characters are off
exactly.
model sometimes. And here they go out of their way to like, let's not draw these people off model. We're gonna be like as tight as we can.
True. Like, there's not even a second where I'm noticing it's off model. The only thing I can notice is maybe like just like the 3D thing would just pop up every now and then. Which is like I was one like so you were saying that like a lot of it was like hand drawn, but then they mixed it with the 3D, or because I thought it was all 3D and they just found a way to make it look 2D.
Well, there were reports recently this week saying that it was mostly hand drawn. I don't know if I believe
Okay,
him, but that's what they're telling us. I mean, it looks there are some moments that look hand drawn, but the models that they're using also look more hand drawn than like the What If TV show.
true.
So I don't really know. I'd be interested to see more behind the scenes how they animated the show. But I was always saying, like, if Disney and Marvel are working together on this show in 2024, it better look good. Like, like, like it has such a struggle because it's supposed to look kind of like the old series, but also be new and appealing to newer audiences. And it's like you said, it has some anime influences, and there's a lot going on. But I think overall, I'm pleased with the look because the character models look good. They're similar to what we're used to. Um, the animation, to me, it has that anime quality where it's like fluid when it wants to be. Like it's either fluid or static. Like
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and that's okay because to me that kind of gives it a comic book feel. Like I love animation for superheroes where it's like it makes you feel a little bit like it's from a comic book but with just animated, like that's what I
Mhm.
want. Like I've always said that animation is the best medium for superhero stuff outside of comics because you can really do all the flashy superpowers. You can get serialized storytelling, and it's hopefully less expensive than a big live action feature length movie. So
They threw money at this show, and you can tell. Like they said, here's a budget. And the entire time I was watching it, I was like, it kind of feels like I don't know if this is gonna be like a little like niche or whatever, but like I was sitting there and I was like, it seems like it felt like what would happen if the 90s animated series was turned into a movie that went into theaters. That's the way that it looks.
Yeah.
Because you know how animated movies that are then put into theaters, they have like different shading and it just looks just like it looks the same but different, but like you can tell they have money and it is also in widescreen.
Hmm.
Love it. I love that.
Great point. Yeah, and to add on to that just a little bit, I have to say, like, this is some X-Men content that a lot of fans have been waiting for. Like, we didn't even know we wanted it this badly, but um, like when you think about the history of X-Men in various media, you had the '90s series, which was the OG. It did something very novel for the times, where it adapted comic book storylines, and it had serialized storytelling. It wasn't just one episode at a time like older superhero cartoons. Like, they were digging into the Claremont era and all that stuff.
Hmm.
And so then we got the X-Men movie, where the biggest flaw of it, some people might say, is that they never wanted to do the '90s costumes. Like, the '90s costumes are pretty iconic, and
Hmm.
they decided to do black leather. They even joked about, like, what would you rather have, yellow and blue spandex? Like, yes, that's what we want, and we haven't quite gotten it yet. So, like, we're about to get it, maybe with the Deadpool Wolverine. Maybe might be, in his more classic costume. We've seen some leaks, a lot of leaks, but anyway, the point is, we haven't had a live action version of the X-Men capture the quality of the comic books of the '90s series, which was the most colorful one, I think. I mean, you had other series that were also well designed, very interesting, but like, this one is pretty iconic, and it was the first, and it's the most talked about, and it's the most, like, it's there's I acknowledge why they rebooted this show. Is all I'm gonna say.
I can get it. I can get it.
All right, so let's also talk about Bishop real quick, because Bishop comes in with Storm and helps free Sunspot from the FOH, the F out of here people. So,
Mm-mm.
what do you think of Bishop? We didn't see a lot of him, but
I liked him. I liked Bishop. He didn't get that much screen time in this episode, but from what I did see, I liked him. He was
yeah, I like Bishop.
cool.
He got a new haircut, so
I
there's
dig the
that.
haircut though. I do. I dig the haircut.
Yeah, and he got a new voice actor. In the original, Bishop was voiced by Philip Aiken, and here he's voiced by Isaac Robinson Smith. So I don't know if Philip Aiken returns to the show or not, or what's up with him, but we've got a new Bishop voice actor. I'm looking forward to hearing more from him on the show. I did notice that he's got like veins that glow, I think, when he uses his powers, which is a cool touch. And also, I just have to say, like, in that first scene where we're introduced to him, I think it's pretty powerful that we have a black man whose power is, if you shoot at him, it's not gonna matter. It's gonna make him stronger. Like, kind of
Exactly.
like a
Exactly.
Luke, kind of like a Luke Cage kind of thing. Like, like, you don't even try to shoot me. It's not worth it. It's not worth anyone's time.
Honestly, something powerful like something powerful about having the show open up with Storm and Bishop on the scene saving Sunspot. I was
Yeah,
like, oh, okay, this is hype. This is hype. This is
I
hype.
agree. Yeah, that was the moment I was like, okay, I'm here. I'm ready for it. Let's see what's next. So after that, we're introduced to Cyclops. Cyclops comes in. Man, this
Cyclops, Scott
show,
Summers.
they put the sauce on Cyclops' scenes this episode. They're like, you know what? Everybody used to make fun of Cyclops from the old show because he was kind of a Boy Scout, goody two shoes. But here, he is stepping into that leadership role. He's using his powers like a boss. Zap, zap, zap. Like, I like a video game or something. It was so cool.
It was awesome, especially like the use of the concussive blasts and everything. I know on Twitter, a couple people were like talking about it like nonstop. But like one of the things I really thought about was that like outside of the comics and the animated series, we never really seen an adaptation of him like using his like blasts in like a cool creative way. And that just reminded me how like in the movies, the Foxman movies, they made his beams like heat vision for some reason. You remember
Mm.
that? Like,
I always thought I thought it was still concussive, but I think there was like maybe a hot element to it. I can't remember.
yeah, I remember in X-Men Apocalypse for some reason he like burnt a tree and everything.
True. Yeah, I mean they were definitely very hit or miss with those Fox X-Men movies. And that's why this being the first Disney X-Men project is such a big deal. Like we're getting animation before we're getting live action.
Hmm.
This might inform some of the decisions they make when it comes to live action. We don't know yet. Um,
Possibly.
so we'll see. But yeah, they definitely Storm. They're putting respect on Cyclops, um, and you love to see it. So then the X Men go back to the mansion. We see Gambit and Rogue. Gambit is in a crew. What do you call it? A crop top.
A crop top, yeah.
It's kind of sexy. Like Gambit, he's always got to be sexy.
He
he's
do.
everyone. He's he's everyone's bi awakening. and
100%,
then
100%.
and then you got Rogue, classic Rogue. Although here she's wearing one of her more casual outfits, her pink outfit, and they're basically like, yeah, we felt like we didn't have to go on the mission. Like we knew you guys would be fine.
You
And
know,
then
okay.
go ahead.
No, I was gonna ask you a question real quick. What was your thoughts on Gambit and Rogue's voice acting?
All right, so um, with Gambit, we have a new voice actor. In the past, Gambit was played by Chris Potter, who is now going to be the voice of Cable, I believe. But in this series, Gambit is voiced by AJ Lacasio, and I think he does a good job. We didn't get a lot of Gambit, but enough for me to be like, I don't have a problem with it. But Rogue, I will say I do think her voice has aged a bit. I mean, all of their voices have aged a bit. Um, but I think with her, it's the most noticeable because, first of all, she always had this like raspy quality to her voice, and that was 30 years ago. So like, it's been some time. And then it's like Marge Simpson, like Marge Simpson's voice has changed over the years because it's such a hard thing to do maintain that rasp. And then on top of that, Rogue has the white streaks in her hair. And in the past, you think, oh, it's just a aesthetic thing, but now it's like, well, maybe she's just kind of old. Maybe she's graying like me. I don't know.
No, okay. So I'm glad that you said you had those same thoughts because I haven't seen anyone talk about that, and it's no like it's no shade to
Yeah,
the
no
voice
disrespect
actress.
to Lenore Zahn. We love her. We're glad she came back.
Exactly,
She's doing a great
exactly,
job.
exactly. But I'd say that like with her voice acting for the character, there's a little bit of signs of age with it, and it just took a little bit of getting used to. I'd say by the second episode, I got more used to it. Uh, but yeah, I was kind of thrown off when I first like saw the like heard the voice. So
Yeah,
glad
like
we had the
I'm
same
glad.
thoughts on that.
Yeah, like I would rather her be here than not. But like I agree. Like it does kind of take you out of it just a little bit.
Hmm.
All right, so let's also talk about Morph, who strolls into the kitchen looking like Professor X, and he's walking. And right away, I knew this was Morph because, like, why would Professor X be here and walking? Like, we already know he's been assassinated from the end of the previous series, so it's like this seems really uh messed up. And then
Hmm.
Cyclops calls him out, and he's like, "Morph, come on,
Stop being weird.
yeah, stop being weird." But Morph has always been weird, so it's all right. Um, um, we'll talk more about Morph later, probably if we have time. But um, I also want to talk about Jean, who pops into this scene. We see her; she's pregnant, so that's new. Any thoughts about Jean so far?
That's not Jean.
right?
That's not Jean.
We all know
That's
that's
not
not
Jean.
Gene. We all
We
know
all
that's not
knew.
Gene.
We,
Yeah.
you know, I don't know if it was okay. Actually, at least for me, I think it was because Hasbro kind of like like they kind of like rocked the boat. They kind of tipped the boat over with that when they released the Madeline Pryor figure with the baby.
Mhm.
So like, if
Yeah. Anyone
two
familiar with the
plus two
comic books?
equals four,
Yeah.
two plus two equals four, you can put two and two together with that. So yeah, I think that, and then on top of that, something I don't know. I'm gonna keep those extra thoughts to myself because
Yeah.
that's gonna lead into our to the next recording. But
Yeah. Let's
it,
try to keep our thoughts to what happened in this episode.
yeah,
Um.
but Gene, if I were to think this was Gene without me having those thoughts, Jennifer Hale does a really good job voice acting as Gene.
Yeah. I
This
gotta
isn't her first
say,
time doing it.
right. I gotta say that Jennifer Hale replaces Catherine Disher, who is now Valerie Cooper. We'll talk about that in a bit. But Jennifer Hale, very talented voice actress, has done a lot of roles over the years, and she fits right in as Jean. And she doesn't sound particularly out of character or sinister, quote unquote. But it is interesting because she has the scene where with Cyclops where they're kind of like talking about, oh, we got this new baby, we might need to think about leaving the X-Men, and she's the one pushing it. She's like, it's all right, they'll be fine without us. It's we gotta think about the baby, and like none of that is inherently sinister, but it could be. We know it probably is. I wonder if there's more of an ulterior motive to get Cyclops away from the X Men.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. But okay. As this being Gene, I think, well, as Gene or faux Gene, I guess. Uh, Pretty cool. I like the use of her powers. This Gene doesn't feel like she's gonna faint every 5 seconds.
Yeah, she had this
Which,
really cool scene where she used Cerebro and she was having nightmare
yeah,
or flat. It was that looked really cool.
that was
And
amazing. Actually, that whole
and
sequence.
and I love that they're leaning into like Cyclops being a wife guy. Like we've seen a lot of this in the comics recently. Like he loves Jean. He knows how powerful she is. He'd be like, you can try to mess with me, but don't even try to mess with my wife because she will kill you. He is
Exactly.
the most powerful being in existence. So like I love that. Um, any other thoughts about Jean before we move on?
No, I have no other thoughts on faux Gene.
All right, let's talk about Beast. Okay, so Beast is in the his lab. He's kind of taking care of Sunspot while he like wakes up from chilling or whatever. And yeah, Sunspot's definitely thrown off. He's like, "You're very blue. Like you're blue." And we get very classic Beast. His voice actor returns, George Buza. Like, love Beast. I love this is the best Beast. Like the '90s series had the best version of Beast, in my opinion. What do
I
you think?
agree. I think so too. Even down to the design and just using Beast. Beast just felt like Beast. Even you said that the guy who voiced him in the '90s returned for this. I'd say
Mm-hmm.
of the returning cast, he's the one who still fits the role really well. Um, and it works for me. Beast hasn't had too much screen time in this episode, but for the bits that we did see him, man, he made it count, and I love seeing him.
Likewise, I felt the same way. Um, I do want to mention we forgot to say before that Cyclops' voice actor, unfortunately, the original one passed away a few years ago. Norm Spencer, may he rest in peace. So in this series, he's voiced by Ray Chase, and I think Ray Chase does a pretty admirable job. Like he sounds a lot like Norm Spencer. He's put in the work. I have no complaints about it.
His voice is really really good. The voice acting in this, I'm curious who their voice director is because just a lot of just the stuff is just very very good, along with just the dialogue, especially Cyclops' dialogue.
Yeah. All right. So next, let's talk a little bit about Jubilee. So in the same scene with Beast and Sunspot, um, Sunspot meets Jubilee, and right away, every time Jubilee looks at Sunspot, she's giving him the eyes. Like she's like, "Who is he?" Like like it's kind of cute to see her have a um, little love interest. That's close to her age. Like that didn't happen a lot on the old show. I don't remember.
It was cool
Um,
seeing that. I'm kind of rooting for them. I'm genuinely curious, and it's making me wonder. Because they're doing the whole Magneto on trial thing that they're adapting and everything, and it makes me wonder: are we going to see more New Mutants characters, or is it going to just be Sunspot is the new character that's on for the ride for the team? But I am kind of digging this pairing. I don't think this was a pairing in the comics either, so this is actually pretty interesting.
yeah, I agree. And Jubilee, like we said before, she has been recasted. Allison Court um, graciously stepped aside. She said, "I don't want to voice my character because 30 years later, I realized I probably wasn't the best choice to begin with, just due to the fact that it doesn't represent the character's ethnicity." Um, so now, Jubilee is voiced by sorry. Now Jubilee is voiced by Holly Chow, and I think she does a good job. I will say this Jubilee sounds a little bit older, a little bit more mature. I'm kind of used to the youthful effervescence that Jubilee had. She's in the '90s, like she definitely was a lot more immature, but it's fine. I'm not going to complain. I'm actually glad to see Holly Chow in the role, so willing to give her some time to settle into it.
I'm curious, how old should Jubilee be in this season? Because
Don't ask
92
about
is
ages with the X-Men. It's a waste of time. We'll never figure it out. That
I
baby is
mean,
going to time travel and become an old man, older than his parents. So let's just skip it.
let's skip it. Let's skip it. Let's skip it. We're just gonna skip that. Who's the next character on the list?
All right. So next, um, Jubilee takes Sunspot to the danger room. I don't know why she thinks it's a good idea to thrust him into the danger room when he just said he doesn't like using his powers and such. But anyway, he's thrown right into it. There's a Magneto simulation, and then Wolverine pops in there and puts two of his claws like right around his neck, and then the third one he hasn't popped into his skull. But Roberto thinks this is like another hologram, but no, Wolverine shuts down the program and he's still there. So this is the classic Wolverine, like rough and tumble, loves to mess with people, uh, gives everybody a hard time. What did you think of his intro there?
I would be irritated. I would be so freaking irritated if Wolverine played that type of stuff with me. Listen, I would have quit the X-Men in that same day.
Right? Like, like
Don't do that.
that's yeah, that's too much, man. Like, and it's to me, it's kind of wild that like they kind of saved Wolverine for last. Like, he's like we've been talking about all these other X-Men that they brought out first, and like, he didn't really have a lot to do in this episode, but that's okay. Like what he gave was classic Wolverine, and we have the classic voice actor returning, Cal Dodd. A lot of people say he's the best Wolverine voice actor. um I think that there have been several voice actors for Wolverine who have all done commendable jobs, so I can't say I can't say who I think is the best, because I like them all, but I think that for him to come back and still sound like Wolverine is just great. And he deserves it. Like he was the first one to really give us that growly Canadian Wolverine. Because before that, Wolverine was Australian for some reason on the
Oh my god, I
cartoons.
remember
So
that. I remember that. That was wild. Australia.
yeah,
He was like, he said something along the lines of "shrimp on the barbie, mate," in the
right.
Spider-Man Amazing Friends. Oh my god,
Yeah,
no,
we
but
don't need that Wolverine.
oh god, Carl Dodd as Wolverine in this show. You know, I think it's another moment of just like you can kind of hear the age in his voice when he plays Wolverine, but
Yeah,
it kind of works for
yeah. I mean,
Wolverine
Wolverine
still.
is old as heck anyway, so it works
Yeah,
for
it
him.
works.
Um,
It works.
we we didn't really say anything negative about Allison Seeley Smith, but her voice has aged as well. But also, I think Storm's cadence and the way she talks is very old school. Like
Yeah, it worked though.
it works for Storm, and Storm has such a unique voice in the original that we needed it here because like Storm, her voice is half the character, like where she's shouting at the winds and stuff. So
I put in my notes that like her voice for Storm kind of just add a little bit of seasoning to it. Like for some reason, like it's like the voice sounds even better. And something that I like, like I said earlier, I watched the original show to like a little bit of the original show because you and I texted about it. And when I was watching it, like it had the 90s isms of voice acting back then. And one of the things that Storm's actress did back then was like a little like, a little campy, but like here, the seasoning and then on top of that, just like the acting, amazing, amazing, amazing
yeah,
job.
agreed. Next, I want to mention Valerie Cooper. Okay, so in the original series, Catherine Disher did Jean Grey, but now Catherine Disher is doing the voice of Valerie Cooper. And in this introductory scene, we see her. Cyclops and Jean are talking to her over a video call, like a giant video Zoom or something. And I love that she is on her treadmill because this is the same thing that happened in season one when they had like the female president who was like on her treadmill. It was just a very 90s thing, a callback that I love. It's hilarious to me. Like even Cyclops is like, well, when you're done with your cardio, then maybe you can tell us like what's going on.
Something I love the fact that this book, I mean not book, why am I saying book? This show really is taking place. Like it said we're gonna make sure this stuff is taking place in the 90s.
In the
And you can
90s,
kind of
everything
feel
is
it throughout
very
it.
90s. Some of the humor
Yeah.
is 90s, a lot of the clothing is 90s. Um, it's very lovingly rendered. A lot of the advertising around it has been very 90s. So I think that's been part of the fun of bringing back this particular show because it's so rooted in this era. And now it's more nostalgic versus in the time it was just contemporary.
Hmm.
So it's kind of wild because you got this 90s team. And even back then, they were doing kind of like 80s, 70s storylines, but with this team. And that leads me to my one major question. Will this show give us an animated version of Kitty Pryde? Because we never got Kitty Pryde in the original 90s series. Prior to that, there was like a pilot that didn't go anywhere called Pride of the X-Men that if you haven't seen, listeners, go check it out. It's on YouTube. But that one starred Kitty Pryde. It got trashed. And then we got X-Men 90s, which put Jubilee in that role of like the kid sidekick or whatever. So I really wonder if there's even room for Kitty Pryde in this show and if they'll give her a cameo or something. What do you
Honestly, that's
think?
a good question. A part of me feels like they might. Maybe within season two. 'Cause I think it did get greenlit for no, they already did a season two. I think they did like a whole they finished that already.
Yeah, I think they finished
Uh
season two, and I think season three has now been approved. But
yeah.
with or without Bo DeMeo, we'll see.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure that well not pretty sure. I could see them doing it because like the reason why I brought up how old is Jubilee is because like if Jubilee is like I'm assuming this is just an assumption, but we don't know because age doesn't matter with the X-Men, everybody. Uh, to my knowledge, I would assume Jubilee is now maybe 17 or maybe 18,
Yeah, we can
depending.
safely assume she's a teenager. Like she was probably on the upper end of being a teenager if she was with the X-Men for 5 seasons, however long that was.
Yeah, and she was like about like 13 when she joined the team. So like I would say she's about like, entering young adulthood at this point. So if that's the case, and we're gonna see her more in like a more mature role, it makes me
In
wonder
this,
what if
go
it,
ahead.
ma- it makes me wonder what if they like bring in Kitty Pryde to fulfill that like child, like that
Oh no,
younger.
no, I do not want to see Kitty Pryde younger than Jubilee. If she comes in, she got to be older than Jubilee. At least for me, that's all.
Mhm.
That's all I want. Even if it's just a cameo, I don't know. But um, I will say in this episode, Jubilee, Sunspot, all of them go to a nightclub. and they do some dancing. So maybe she's like at
Points.
least 18. I don't know. Like, how old do you have to be to get into a dance club? Was it like age
Ooh,
restricted? I don't know.
points. But it looked like a
But
rave type of.
I know, like, and like that was so great. Like every great cartoon show has like a rave or a dancing scene, especially X-Men Evolution, but also like Batman Beyond, just shows like that. Like, and Jubilee had her moment. She was like, and
With the fireworks and stuff.
yeah, and then there was this song playing like, I can't get close to you or something like that. And then they showed Rogue, and she
Not
was like
the
looking all
house
sad.
music. They played the house music.
Yeah, like, but the lyrics were so on point with like for Rogue in particular, like, because she can't touch anybody, and she's looking at all the people at the club kissing and dancing and touching, and she's talking around me. She's like, "Oh, sucks to be me," which she always does, but like, we needed that moment because we're getting reintroduced to her.
Hmm.
So, loved it. Any thoughts about that before we move on?
No thoughts. I just got to say the dance scene and just the club scene was just cool. It was fun. I was very surprised when Wolverine cursed. I was like, oh,
What did he say? I didn't catch it.
um, can I say it?
Go ahead.
He said, "Damn."
I didn't even pay attention to it because that's like one of the lower tier curse words. So like, you know,
Yeah, yeah, they're pushing the envelope just like a little bit in this show.
hmm
Because even within the second episode, because I know we're going to talk about that later, but like in the second episode when the whole birth scene was happening and everything, I was like, oh, we're really okay. But other than that, like, yeah, they're pushing the envelope a little bit.
I gotta say, like about that nightclub scene, we saw Wolverine interacting with Morph, and damn, if they didn't look like a gay couple. Like they were just at the gay club,
They
uh,
did.
and even
You
Morph
know
was
what?
like
They're the best of
switching
buds.
back and forth between himself and also like Jean Grey, and he was like mocking Wolverine for like not being the baby daddy because Cyclops is her baby daddy. Are they married yet? I think they got married in the show. They tried a
Yeah,
couple
they're
times, didn't
married.
work. Yeah, I always can't keep track of that, um, but yeah, I think uh Morph has been confirmed non-binary, and I guess I should use they them pronouns. I'll try to be consistent with that if I haven't. So apologies, but let me try and do better. Um, yeah, but like I'd love that. I think that it makes sense. Although I have to say, Morph has always been kind of a weird character for me because like in the original series, he died so quickly, and then he came back and as a villain, and then he got he was like in the background, and he finally came back at the end. It's like, and Morph was never around before the show. Like I think he was kind of like based off of like some other minor characters from the comics, like Changeling and stuff. But um, Mystique is the real shapeshifter of the X Men, right? So
Hmm.
Mystique didn't get a lot of play in the OG series. She had a few episodes, but like she wasn't a major player. And then in the movies, Mystique was a major player. So it's like it's interesting that the X Men always need to have at least one person being a shapeshifter, and in this show it's Morph. I mean, I like Morph. I think I love how they used his powers this episode. Was it this? Yeah, this episode he's like shapeshifting in the other X Men. We get lots of cameos. He's like Archangel. He's flying. Got wings. He's
That was cool. That was so cool. That was
yeah.
so cool. Like the fact that, and I'm assuming that was their confirmation that Morph can like mimic other people's powers as well too.
I
I'm
was thinking
assuming.
like, and when you use that word, it makes me think of the other X Men character Mimic, who was an early um, new recruit to the X Men who didn't quite make it. But um, yeah, like it's interesting how there's always some kind of shape shifting character, and it's always kind of vague how their powers work. But as long as we get some cool stuff with it, I'm happy. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Henry Gyrick. All right. So Storm,
Ooh.
Cyclops, and the kind of Bishop, they kind of go interrogate Gyrick, who was in prison after trying to assassinate Professor X about a year ago. They want to interrogate him, figure out where this Sentinel tech is coming from. Like, how did the FOH get it? They want to know what's going on. Henry Gyrick was as racist as he could be. Um,
Incredibly.
I mean, I will say people have noticed how how the old show and they continue it in this show. The Friends of Humanity go out of their way to let you know they're not racist. They got people of all, they got members of all races. They just speciesists. They don't like mutants.
I don't know. That second episode had me questioning some things, but we'll get to that in
All
our
right, we'll
next
get to that.
episode.
I just had to mention like I did see like a few black members of the FOH. I'm like, F out of here. Like, what are y'all doing on the
I would never
FOH?
understand that. I would never understand that. But you know something? If mutants were real,
I
you know what? I'm gonna keep that thought to myself. I'm gonna keep that thought to myself for right now. But
okay,
you know something? I don't like it. I don't
yeah,
think it's okay.
I
And
agree, and we'll let that go for now. Although I will say, there's always some who fall into the sunken place, but we'll leave it at that.
okay, that's what I was gonna say. So glad we're on the same page. Glad we are on the same page with that one.
All right, but so Gyrick is not giving them any real tips, but Jean, I think, goes into his brain. She gets the details, but also she has kind of like a moment where she trips out. She's like, "Wait a minute, someone else is here. Something's going on," and it messes up her whatever she's doing. I can't explain what's going on, but um, eventually they realize that Bolivar Trask is in the Sahara Desert building Sentinels. He's got a new master mold factory. Um, so the X Men travel out there right away. They're in the Blackbird, and right away, Sentinels come down, attacking them, ripping the Blackbird apart, grabbing the X Men. The animation gets wild. They're all falling from the sky. Cyclops is like, all right, okay, Flyers, grab the X Men. I'll meet y'all down there, and he just uses his optic beams to like lower himself
Yes.
down to the ground.
The music
Stick
is
scene.
swelling.
Yes, like
The music is swelling. The score is like getting there. And then like
yeah.
the theme song slowly coming on.
Woo! This is what we came here for. So then we get this huge Sentinel fight. Um, thoughts? I'll let you take it from here.
It had me when the theme song was coming on. Like it was like a whole orchestra that was playing in the background, but it was like slowly coming in there. And
Yeah,
then like all the fight got started getting all just even better. Like everyone had their whole moments. Uh
yeah.
like
Props to Feige for
everyone.
getting the original music, and like they recreated the opening titles, and they kept playing like the theme and the moments that counted. So like it makes a world difference. Like it's so good.
Literally. And then all I gotta say is my favorite. Well, you know, I got a question for you, Freddie. What was your favorite moment in that whole fight right there, like that with
Okay,
that we
my
saw?
favorite moment, no doubt, is Storm, um where
That's mine too.
yeah, Cyclops is like, give him the forecast, and then the Sentinels are like, Omega level mutant detected, and then Storm makes her entrance. She ain't even like rushing; she's just like walking. Like
She walking.
the ground is turning to ice, and then like she whips up like a tornado or something, and then she starts like lightning, and then like she just destroys everything. Our second badass Storm moment of the show already. Hats off,
Literally.
chef's kiss. It was beautiful.
But wait, I don't even think that was. I don't think that was ice. That was glass. She
Yes.
turned the sand into glass with like shooting the lightning onto the sand,
Right, right. Yes.
and then used the wind to like carry the glass, and then shredded all the sentinel. Listen,
Six,
like you
six, six.
said, she was calmly walking down after he said, "Bring the forecast."
Yes, this is our goddess. This is our Hadar Yao. Like this is the one. This is the storm content we have been missing. Like we've been waiting for. We didn't quite get all this with the movies. In the movies, he was making ice cubes for Cyclops. So
Goodbye.
so like
You're not wrong. She did do that. She did. She waved her hand over that red Solo cup
like
and
if you
gave
did
him
if you
3 ice cubes.
yeah, for y'all, if you didn't see Dark Phoenix, you didn't miss much. But
But for the Dazzler fans, Dazzler was in there for like 5 seconds.
Dazzler did get a little cameo, so there was some there. It was worth watching if you're an X-Men fan. But don't get me wrong. But Storm has always been underserved, but not here. They are making sure we get our Storm moments, and I'm thankful for each one of them. But honestly, every member of the X-Men had a cool moment in this battle.
Hmm.
Um, although I do have one point that I have to make. Some of these coolest scenes, like the when Cyclops was zapping his way down to the ground, or when the Sentinels attack, like it had me thinking. Both of those things happened in X Men Evolution, and those were Chef's Kiss moments. Like I waited 2 seasons for Sentinels on X Men Evolution, and when I got it, it was amazing. Still some of my favorite episodes to this day. Like it's hard to top that, but this is like right up there. It's neck and neck. Like so, I'll give them their props, but I'm just saying it. X Men Evolution is great if you haven't made it to season 2. Go watch it because a lot of people have trouble with the first season, but once you get going, it's good.
I love the first season of X Men Evolution.
Yeah, it's great. It has its charm, but it had more of the high school vibe, which not everybody's
Mm,
into. But
okay, okay.
we're here talking about X-Men 97. Um, there's a few more things we got to get to because we're running out of time. But I just want to talk about Magneto. At the end of this episode, we get
Listen,
Magneto.
with his little silk press.
Yes, like he walks in like a badass. He's just like, "Hey, y'all miss me?" Like, he's wearing his trench coat. He's like, he's in Professor X's office. Like everybody's like, "Hold up, why are you intruding?" And then he's like, "No, intruding? Excuse me? Actually, Professor X left all this to me." Like, and then like, and he closes the episode saying, "All of this belong." And what does he say? He's like, "And now everything belongs to me, my X-Men."
Listen, I'm here for Magneto sassiness. Love it.
Yes.
Uh, and that was a cool ending. I felt like this felt like a great opening to a whole like I'm excited to see where this goes, and Magneto showing up in the end was just the cherry on top for me.
So good. Um, yeah, like we did see this moment in the trailer, but like it still hits. Um, it's so good. Um, there's a lot more we could say about what happened in this episode. I do want to mention that Sunspot ends up talking to Jubilee, and like he's just not ready to like embrace his mutant powers. He does reveal that his family doesn't accept him, and Jubilee's like, "Well, we got a great found family here, and you're welcome to join us." But like he's just not ready yet, so he kind of leaves her his card, goes off. We'll probably see him again, but um, it's
You
just so
better. He's in a
funny to see.
promotional.
Yeah, but it's just so funny to see Magneto stepping in here like this because to me, this is like referencing when Magneto joined the X Men in the '80s after Charles died. But at that time, the main X Men weren't there. It was mostly like the New Mutants. So
Yep.
so he becomes headmaster of the next generation of X Men, the New Mutants. But here, he's basically like, "Y'all, I'm in charge now of this version of the X Men, the '90s X Men." So we'll see where that goes in the next episode. So definitely join us, listeners, on Super Saturdays podcast. We'll give you the deets in a minute. But I just want to ask if you have any other final thoughts about this episode.
Like I said, this really is a good opening for the entire show, and I think everybody who's an X Men fan, or maybe you aren't an X Men fan, and you just you want to get into the X Men, I think this would be a really good show to start with, or just to watch, because I think they do a pretty decent job with like looping you in on what's going on.
Yeah,
Because I didn't finish the entirety of the original show, I did do my little rewatch, and I'm still doing like bits and pieces. I got to get into season 3. But I kind of had like a good idea about what was going on. They looped me in enough to, understand. So if you haven't watched it, then yeah, go ahead and check it out. I had a good time.
I completely agree. Me too. Like, and also had a great time talking to you today about this first episode. Thanks again for being on the podcast. Um, All right. Well, before we go, I do want to ask, what are we reading? Are you reading any good comic books these days? Particularly anything X-Men related you want to shout out?
Yeah, actually, it's funny because when you sent me over the template for the script for this episode, I had to sit down and think about what am I reading because my reading list has been like all over the place. But for Mutant March on Super Saturdays, I've read X-Men season 1. I started the beginnings of the Grant Morrison run. Started the first 2 issues. I'm enjoying it so far.
Nice.
And another thing that I recently picked up was Blue Beetle issue 7. So it was the ending of the Scarab Wars. Haven't read it yet. It's on my shelf, but I'm gonna be reading that too. And so those are like the 3 things that I'm reading currently. How about you, Freddie?
Awesome. I do want to take a minute to shout out X-Men comic books in general. Like, if you are new to the show or new to this podcast, never read an X-Men comic before, now is the time to dive in. Why not? Like, there's so many great X-Men comic books out there. Stuff from every decade going back to the 60s. And you might like something if you dive in. A lot of people get intimidated by, 60 years of continuity, but like you said, X-Men season one is one of many good places to start. It's a more modern take on their origin. So everybody go check out Damon's review of that on his podcast. Um, I think for me though, I will say I have been current with the X-Men comic books. I've been reading this whole era we've been in. It's called the Krakoan era. They've been living on this island called Krakoa, and it's coming to an end. Like, we're now in the fall of the House of X, which is like they're wrapping it up. I don't know if it's because of synergy with this show. They want to like just make it new reader friendly, I guess. Have new creative teams starting in a few months, and just have a new direction. But for longtime readers, this has kind of been sad. Like, it's been a rough time. A lot of painful stuff has happened in the comics, but um, you know, this is this is what happens. There's always some changeover after a few years. But I do have to say, if you're a fan of Storm, if you're a fan of Magneto, just this week, an issue of a book called Resurrection of Magneto came out. It was so good. It's one of the best comic books I've ever read. 5 stars. Um, Must read. Like, it reads best if you've been following this whole era. But if you ever get around to this comic book, if you're a fan of these characters, read it because it's so good. It's only 4 issues, but like I said, man, it builds off of what came before, but it's so good. Um, like, Storm and Magneto have been eating this week. Like, everybody, like from this show and from that comic book, I'm like, oh, I'm just so sad because
The
I know
only
it
L is that
won't last.
mohawk they
I
gave her
know it's
though.
not going to last. Okay, so we'll talk about the Mohawk next episode. We promise. We didn't have a lot to say about it today, but I'm sure we'll have more to say about it on your podcast.
We're gonna roast the mohawk. We are on Super
I mean,
Saturday.
I gotta defend it a little bit, but we will also roast it.
Yeah. See, I enjoy the transparency.
That said, yeah. Again, this has been our big DMV Comic Book Nerds podcast return. So thank you all for listening. If you made it this far, if you are interested to hear more, please, like I said, check us out on Damon's podcast, Super Saturdays, for part two. And then in the weeks to come, I'm hoping to bring you guys more episode reviews, more comic book reviews. Um, we'll see where this goes. So stay tuned, friends. If you have any thoughts you'd like to hear on the podcast, send us your thoughts. You can find me at DMVCBN on mostly on Threads, uh, maybe on Twitter or X or whatever you call it. I don't know. And then you got YouTube. We're trying to be on there, and Instagram. So yeah, so look for DMVCBN on those platforms. Where can people find you, Damon?
Gosh, well, you can find me in your hearts. I'm kidding. No, but you can find Super Saturdays if you're interested in going and seeing what we got. You can find us on Twitter or X. I say Twitter because that's me. At Super Saturday PC. I'm on there pretty frequently for the show. Then there's the Instagram, Super Saturdays Podcast, and TikTok, if it's not banned, at Super Saturdays Pod. Or
Right. I
did I get
forgot
the
the
names mixed up?
TikToks. Forgot the TikToks. Well, yeah,
Yes.
DMVCBN's over there too.
Yep.
It's so like as an X-Men fan, I hate that Elon Musk called Twitter X. I
Who?
don't like to call it X, but sometimes I do call it X just because it is noticeably different than how Twitter used to be. It's actively worse. So you know, sometimes it does need a designation. It's like this is the worst version of Twitter.
I agree. I
but
agree.
uh,
I agree.
but but we're not letting go of old Twitter yet. Um, so we're still around there. But yeah, everybody definitely go check out Super Saturdays podcast. Great stuff happening over there. And please come back and check us out too. If you like our podcast, please give us a positive review and let us know what you think. All right, everybody.
Yes, yes. And
That's
thanks
it
for
for
having me on here,
us.
Freddie.
Of course, anytime. All right. Well, take care, everyone. Good night.
See you.
Bye.